Howdy folks, Sam here. I do hope you're keeping well. Just a quick point of housekeeping before we begin. These lessons are free and always will be, but if you like what I'm doing, do please go ahead and support what I'm doing by donating through my website. I very much appreciate it and could use it. Also, my rate for one-on-one teaching is currently £20 UK for 30 minutes Skype lessons, so if there's anything you're struggling with or not quite getting, or if you're the sort of learner that prefers one-to-one lessons, go ahead and drop me an email and we can arrange that for you, and yeah, we can see some progress there. Okay, enough self-promo, let's begin today's free lesson. So today I wanted to do three things. We've looked at the chords that we use in a blues. I wanted to show you the arpeggios associated with those chords, because those give us sort of safe notes to use when we're soloing. Then with that in mind, I wanted to discuss a concept called playing in the pocket, which is essentially using those safe notes to ground your solos and your improvisations. And with that in mind, I wanted to have a look at a concept that I call dancing around the four chord. I've sort of shown you riffs and licks and scales to play over the first four bars of a blues progression. I want to talk about the middle four bars of blues progression, a 12-bar blues, where we go to... Okay, so what are arpeggios? Arpeggios are broken chords, so we're playing the notes that make up a chord individually. It's that simple. As I'm always saying to people, music theory just uses big, fancy, scary words to describe a very, very simple thing. So never, ever let theory intimidate you. So we've got three chords in the blues, which you should be more than familiar with by now. You should know these changes like the back of your hand. But the one chord, that G, or we're going to play it as a G7, a G dominant 7 chord. The notes for an arpeggio are this. We're going to 2 draw or 3 blow, 3 draw B, 4 draw D, 5 draw F, that's the 7th, and 6 blow for the octave. Now for the 4 chord, our first change, that's C7 or C dominant 7. That we've got 1 blow, that's C, 2 blow. The easiest is probably 3 blow. Then the tricky bit, 3 half-step bend, 3 half-step bend, 1 semitone bend is what I'm thinking, to B flat, and then 4 blow. So that should sound like this. Now the tricky bit is playing the 5 chord. So we're going for a D dominant 7. The notes that we use there are 1 draw, 2 half-step bend. Now it's tough to get that single semitone bend sometimes. So that's your G, that's your F sharp, that's your F. And then from there we're going to a whole step bend on the 3 draw. So that's a whole tone bent down to get A, the 5th of a D dominant 7. So jumping from those 2 bends is a very, very tricky thing, and it still throws me off sometimes, and it's really worth practicing, and it's a great warm-up technique. So whole step bend, and then blow 4 for the 7th. Oh, I need to free that reed up. And then draw 4. That'll sound like this. I was a little bit, see, even there on the 2 draw, I was a little bit shaking. So those are the notes of your arpeggios, and there are some exercises that you can do to learn them. One of those is quite a sort of gimmicky little exercise. I always think of, secondary school when they teach you this is the blues to school children. They always play something like this using those arpeggios. Which is just playing those arpeggios over the changes that we should be familiar with now. I call that like gimmicky blues because, it's always taught to you, or it was taught to me at secondary school, and I was at that age, I was also discovering, you know, real blues, you know, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy, Williamson 1 and 2, and, you know, all the greats. Let's not spend all day naming names. So while they were telling me, you know, blues sounds like this, I was also listening to, you know, real blues going, and what have you. And I was just looking at my teachers like, what the hell are you guys talking about right now? But I think the lesson there is that you can take things like those arpeggios, just playing through, and you can make anything, no matter how boring it is, you can make it interesting using a variation in rhythm. So I thought we'd try a little lick that goes like this. It comes in on beat 2 rather than beat 1, and we're just going to play the notes that I've shown you as those arpeggios. I appreciate I'm going too fast, as I always do. As I'm always saying, please do just pause the video and, you know, break each of these exercises down. Yeah, so the lick goes like this. It's going to come in on beat 2, so I'm going to count myself in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. Change, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 1. 1. 2, 3, 4. And then repeat. So all I'm doing there is I'm playing that arpeggio that I've shown you already, you know, just ascending the arpeggio, and I'm just sending it to a more interesting rhythm. So, you know, stop that, break those licks down, and have some fun with it. It's better if you play it to a metronome, naturally. Unfortunately, my metronome is built into my phone, and I'm using that for the camera right now. So, but yeah, you can hear me counting it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So yeah, pause the video, go ahead and figure that out. So one of the reasons arpeggios are so important is because when you're soloing, and you're playing the changes through, you know, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and what have you, they give you notes that are within that chord and therefore naturally harmonize with it and sound pleasing. Now, part of music is not playing all notes that sound pleasing. You want a little bit of dissonance, you want contrast, and you want resolution. But nonetheless, the notes that I've outlined there for you give you safe notes to play when you're playing over a solo. And that leads me on to an expression that's more used in jazz music than in blues music, called playing in the pocket. And like many of these colloquial expressions, it's got a variety of different meanings depending on what instrument you play or what period of, you know, music or jazz that you like to play in. So for a drummer, for example, playing in the pocket means playing exactly on the beat and being very, very sharp. You're not dragging it a little bit. Some drummers drag the beat, some guys rush the beat. You're bang on it is playing in the pocket. For us, harp players, sax players, trumpet players, guitarists, whoever, playing in the pocket typically means to mean exactly that. You reference a note from the chord that you're soloing over, normally on beats 2 and 4, because in jazz they emphasize beats 2 and 4, whereas pop music tends to emphasize beats 1 and 3. But that's what playing in the pocket means, is that on beats 2 and 4, you will play a note or a cluster of notes from that arpeggio just to keep your solo in keeping with what the rest of the band is doing, the guitar player, the piano, whoever. It means that, you know, your playing is, I guess, a little less avant-garde, but very safe and sort of naturally pleasing and naturally flowing to it. So that's playing in the pocket. So I want to use that idea of playing in the pocket to sort of describe a technique that I call dancing around the 4 chord. It's a concept that's been going for ages. I just thought I'd give it a name. Which is for the middle 4 bars of your blues. So we've had that for 4. When we make that first change to the middle 4 bars, and we go, and then back to the 1. So when we go to that 4 chord, yes, you can play the notes of, you know, a C dominant 7, the ones that I showed you already, you know. And that sounds perfectly fine. That will harmonize with what you're playing, but it doesn't have that roughness and that grit that you sort of want. So on the other hand, you can play, you know, the blues scale that we've looked at in second position, the G blues scale, and that'll fit that change. But you sort of want to strike a balance between the two of having, you know, that gritty blues sound, but also just referencing or playing in the pocket the notes from the C dominant 7 arpeggio as well. And I said last time I'd show you what I play over that change in Hoochie Coochie Man, and it illustrates my point really well. So what I play over the middle 4 bars of Hoochie Coochie Man is quite typical, and it sounds like this. So the last 2 bars there, that is what I play when we go back to the 1 chord, and that's quite self-explanatory. You can play all sorts of things there. But what I'm playing over that 4 chord illustrates my point of this dancing around the 4 and playing in the pocket. So the root note that I'm dancing around is 4 blow. That's C, and that's the root of the chord we're playing. But I'm starting on inhale, draw 4 and 5, and just a little roll, so that's D and F. And while I'm, you know, you could argue that that's the 2nd and 9th and the 4th and the 11th of a C dominant 7, you can add those notes to it quite nicely. In this context, it provides a nice little contrast. So what I'm doing is I'm just doing a little roll between the 2, 4 and 5 inhale, and then on to blow 4 to reference the point, to dance around the 4. Then I'm going to half step bend 3 draw to get B flat, and then back onto blow 4. So there, right there, I've referenced, you know, the root note of the chord that we're playing, which is C dominant 7. I've referenced it on beat 2 and beat 4. So yeah. And then we're going to play that phrase again, but this time instead of going at the end from the B flat, the 3 half step bend, we're going to instead play the 5th of a C7 chord, or sorry, a C dominant 7 chord, which would be G, which we can play on either 2 draw or 3 blow, and that's convenient because that's the next, or that's the root note of the next chord that we're going to play, so it leads together nicely. So we're going to go, and that way you're stringing a little sentence together that makes sense musically, and it has a real flow to it. So I'll play it slowly for you now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I call that concept dancing around the 4, but have a think when you're soloing and when you're just playing to your jam tracks, you know, am I playing in the pocket? Am I playing out of the pocket? What can I do rhythmically to spice this up? And yeah, hopefully you should see, you know, a difference in your playing, and you should have a sort of new kind of fun with it. Hope you're all staying safe. Do support my channel, like I say, by liking, subscribing, sharing, donating, booking me for a lesson, coming to see my band when we're allowed to play again and whatnot. And yeah, take care of yourselves. See you guys soon. Ciao.